Can you imagine these words? Those were the last words my father said to me before he shoved me into an October storm and locked the door behind me. Get out of my house. I don't need a sick daughter. I was only 15 years old. I had no coat, no cell phone, no money, and nowhere to go. Just a soaked school backpack containing my algebra homework and a heart that was shattering in real time. 3 hours later, the police called him. And when he heard what they had to say, the color drained from his face until he looked like a ghost. But by then it was way too late for apologies. My name is Sherry Walls. I am 28 years old now, sitting in the safety of my apartment in Boston, watching the rain slide down the glass of my living room window. There is a letter sitting on my kitchen table, staring at me. The handwriting is shaky, scrawled on cheap, thin nursing home stationery that smells faintly of antiseptic. After 13 years of absolute radio silence, my father wants to see me. He says he is dying. He says he is sorry. But the funny thing about the rain is that it always takes me back to that specific night. October 14th, 2011. The night my life broke into two pieces. The before and the after. I remember coming home from school that day like it was any other Tuesday in suburbia. I had my backpack slung over one shoulder, my head buzzing with the adrenaline of an algebra test I knew I had absolutely crushed. I was thinking about normal teenage things, what we were going to have for dinner, how much homework I had to get through, and specifically about a vintage band poster I wanted to buy on eBay with the birthday money I had been saving up. I was thinking about the future in small, manageable increments. I had absolutely no idea that in less than 2 hours, I would be walking alone through a freezing storm, wondering if I was actually going to survive the night. The moment I stepped through that front door, the atmosphere in the house hit me like a physical wall. You know that feeling when the air pressure drops right before a tornado? It was exactly like that. My father, Raymond, was standing in the center of the living room, looking like a volcano that had been dormant for years and was finally erupting. His face was a color I had never seen before, a deep, mottled shade of raw meat. His hands were shaking violently, and he was gripping a wad of crumpled cash in one fist and 2 empty prescription pill bottles in the other. My sister, Karen, stood right behind him like his shadow. She was 19, 4 years older than me, and she had this expression on her face that was a masterclass in manipulation. She looked concerned, worried, heartbroken, the perfect picture of a devoted older sister who had just discovered something terrible about her baby sibling. But I knew her. I looked past the performance and saw her eyes. I caught that tiny, almost imperceptible flicker she couldn't quite hide. Satisfaction. She was enjoying this. Our stepmother, Jolene, hovered in the doorway leading to the kitchen, her arms crossed tight over her chest, her lips pressed into a thin, white line. She was saying absolutely nothing. That was Jolene's specialty, silent complicity. She had a PhD in looking the other way while bad things happened, as long as they didn't happen to her. My father didn't even let me put down my backpack or take off my sneakers. He started screaming the second I made eye contact. It wasn't a lecture, it was a rage-fueled assault. He accused me of things that didn't even make sense. He screamed that I had been stealing from his wallet for months, siphoning off his hard-earned money. He screamed that I had been buying pills, hiding narcotics in my room under his roof. He said Karen, St. Karen, had found the evidence while putting away laundry. Cash stuffed in my sock drawer. Pill bottles taped to the back of my closet shelf. Printouts of text messages proving I was communicating with drug dealers. I tried to speak. I tried to defend myself. I stammered. Dad, no, I've never touched your wallet. I don't know what those pills are. I've never seen them. But the words died in my throat because as I looked into his eyes, I realized something horrible. He wasn't listening. He wasn't looking for the truth. His mind was already made up. The verdict had been delivered before I even walked in the door. Karen had spent the entire day preparing him for this moment, feeding him lies like poison wrapped in sugar. She stood there looking devastated, adding fuel to the fire with a soft, trembling voice. She told him she had tried so hard to help me privately. She said she had tried to get me to stop using, that she had covered for me because she loved me, but she just couldn't watch her little sister destroy herself anymore. She said she had to tell him for my own good. It was a masterpiece performance, worthy of an Academy Award, And my father swallowed every single word like it was gospel truth. He didn't ask me for my side. He didn't ask to see my phone. He just grabbed my arm. His grip was hard enough to leave bruises that would last for weeks. He dragged me toward the front door like I was a criminal being escorted out of a bank. My backpack was right there on the floor where I had dropped it in shock. He picked it up and threw it at my chest with so much force I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the entryway rug. Then he yanked the front door open. The weather had turned violent while I was inside. Rain was already coming down in sheets, blurring the world outside into a gray wash. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, a low threatening growl. The temperature had dropped 15 degrees since that morning, plunging into the low 40s. My father looked me dead in the eyes, his face twisted with a disgust that broke my heart, and said those words again. "Get out of my house. I don't need a sick daughter. Don't come back until you're clean." He pushed me onto the porch. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed in my bones. Then came the sound that haunts me to this day. The click of the deadbolt sliding home. Just like that, at 15 years old, I was homeless. I stood on that porch for maybe 5 minutes, completely frozen. Not from the cold, though that was seeping in fast, but from sheer shock. My brain couldn't process the data. This was my dad. This was my house. I kept waiting for the door to open again. I kept waiting for him to realize he had overreacted, for Karen to come out laughing and say it was a sick prank. I waited for someone to say, "It was all a big misunderstanding, come back inside." Nobody came. The porch light flicked off. My phone was sitting on my bedroom desk, plugged into the charger. I wasn't allowed to grab anything except what was already in my hands. My backpack contained an Algebra 2 textbook, a spiral notebook, a half-eaten granola bar wrapper, and absolutely nothing useful for surviving a night outside in a storm. No jacket. No money. No umbrella. No way to call for help. It was 2011. Payphones still existed somewhere, maybe, but who carries quarters? Certainly not a 15-year-old who spent her allowance on banned merchandise. I was a straight A student with 0-star survival skills. So, I started walking. I didn't make a conscious decision about where to go. My rational brain had shut down. My body just moved on autopilot toward the only safe place I knew in the entire world. My grandmother Dorothy's house. Grandma Dorothy was my mom's mom. The one person who always looked at me like I mattered, who saw me for who I was, not who Karen pretended I was. She lived 7 miles away. 7 miles doesn't sound like much when you are driving in a heated car with the radio on. When you are walking through freezing rain in canvas Converse sneakers with no coat, 7 miles might as well be 700. Route 9 stretched ahead of me, dark and slick with rain. It wasn't a road meant for pedestrians. The shoulder was narrow, filled with gravel and mud. Cars splashed past me without slowing down, blinding me with their headlights, sending sprays of freezing dirty water onto my legs. I was just a shadow on the roadside, a shape nobody wanted to look at too closely. After the first mile, my clothes were soaked through to my skin. My jeans felt like heavy, wet weights dragging me down. After the second mile, I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. They were white and stiff, clutching the straps of my backpack. After the third mile, my teeth were chattering so hard I thought they might actually crack. My jaw ached from the cold, but I kept walking. What else could I do? Go back and beg my father to believe me? He had looked at me with hatred. He had locked the door. I had nowhere else to go except forward. One numb step at a time. Left foot, right foot, breathe. Left foot, right foot, breathe. The terrifying thing about hypothermia is that you don't realize it's happening until it is almost too late. It's not just feeling cold. Your body starts shutting down piece by piece to protect the core. Your brain gets foggy. Confusion sets in. And suddenly, sitting down on the wet ground for just a minute seems like the best idea in the world. Just a quick rest. Just until you catch your breath. Just closing your eyes for a second. I made it 4 miles before my legs gave out. There was a mailbox up ahead. A standard rural mailbox on a wooden post. I remember thinking I would just lean against it for a second, catch my breath, wring out my hair, and then I would keep going. Grandma's house was only 3 more miles. I could make it. I had to make it. But my knees buckled before I even reached the post. The gravel came up fast to meet me, I hit the ground hard, but I barely felt the impact because I was so numb. I curled into a ball, trying to preserve whatever heat I had left. The rain hammered against my back. The darkness closed in. And then, everything went black. 3 hours after throwing his youngest daughter into a storm, my father's phone rang. The voice on the other end wasn't a friend or a telemarketer. It was cold, professional, and terrifying. It was Officer Daniels with the County Police Department. Mr. Walls? There has been an incident. Your daughter has been found unconscious on the side of Route 9. She is suffering from severe hypothermia. She is being transported via ambulance to County General Hospital right now. There was a pause, and then the officer dropped the hammer. And one more thing, sir. Child Protective Services has been notified. A caseworker is already on site at the hospital. We have some serious questions about why a 15-year-old girl was walking alone in a dangerous storm with no coat and no phone. We are going to need you to come down to the hospital immediately and bring whatever evidence of these alleged crimes you mentioned to her. My father's face went pale as bone. I know this because the hospital staff told me later. They said he looked like a man watching his whole life crumble in slow motion. Karen was standing right next to him when he got that call. And for the first time that day, her perfect mask slipped. Just for a second, panic flashed in her eyes. It was enough. Because here is the thing about that night. The thing that saved me. The woman who found me unconscious on that roadside wasn't just some random stranger driving home from work. Fate or God, or karma intervened. Her name was Gloria Hensley. She had spent 35 years working for Child Protective Services in our county. She was retired now, but you never really retire from that job. She had seen every kind of abuse, every kind of neglect, every kind of lie that parents tell to cover their tracks. She knew exactly what she was looking at when her headlights swept over a teenage girl curled up in the freezing mud with no coat. She knew this wasn't a runaway. This was a throwaway. And Gloria Hensley wasn't about to let it slide. My father thought he was getting rid of a problem that night. He thought he was cleaning house, cutting out the bad apple, protecting his family from a drug addict. But what he actually did was light a fuse that led straight back to his own foundation. And he had no idea what was about to explode. Before we continue with the investigation that exposed everything, if you are enjoying this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. I read everything, and your support helps me tell these stories. Thank you so much. Now, to understand what happened at the hospital, to really understand why my sister Karen did what she did, I need to take you back to when everything started falling apart. My mother, Patricia, died in 2006. It was cancer. I was 10 years old. Karen was 14. Our lives were divided into before mom and after mom. Before, we had a mom who made blueberry pancakes on Sunday mornings, who braided my hair for school pictures, who filled the house with music. After, we had silence. We stood by a hospital bed watching machines beep slower and slower until they stopped altogether, taking the warmth of our home with them. My father didn't handle it well. That is putting it mildly. He basically collapsed in on himself like a dying star. He went to work, came home, sat in his recliner, and stared at the television without really seeing it. The house could have burned down around him, and I am not sure he would have noticed the smoke. He checked out of parenting completely. So Karen stepped up. At 14, she became the woman of the house. She became the one who cooked dinner, the one who signed my permission slips, the one who made sure I got to school on time. She became the responsible one, the mature one, the daughter my father could lean on. And he praised her for it constantly. It was the only time he spoke. What would I do without you, Karen? You're so grown up, Karen. You're the glue holding this family together, Karen. I don't think he ever once asked her how she was handling our mother's death. He just expected her to handle everything else instead. My father had 2 blind spots in life, his oldest daughter and his beloved recliner. Both were worn out, falling apart at the seams, and desperately needed to be examined, but he refused to see it. But what nobody saw, what my father absolutely refused to see, was what happened when he wasn't looking. Karen wasn't just stepping up to help. She was seizing power. She was building a kingdom. And in her kingdom, I was the peasant who needed to be kept in her place. It started small. Gaslighting before I even knew the word. Homework that mysteriously disappeared the night before it was due, leaving me frantically searching while Karen sked in disappointment. Permission slips for field trips that somehow never made it to my teachers, leaving me the only kid left behind in the library. My favorite shirt shrunk in the wash. Then another. Then my favorite jeans. Oops. Must have been an accident. You should be more careful with your things, Sherry. She would go to my teachers with this sad, concerned expression, the same one she used on our dad, and tell them I was struggling after our mother's death. She told them I was acting out at home, that I was emotionally unstable, that they should be patient with me because I was troubled. She painted a picture of a broken, difficult child, and everyone believed her because she was so mature, so responsible, so caring. I tried to tell my father once. I sat him down when I was 12 and tried to explain that Karen was lying about me, that she was sabotaging me. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. You're just jealous of your sister, he snapped. She does everything for this family. She is trying to help you. You should be grateful. After that, I learned the most dangerous lesson a child can learn. Keep your mouth shut. Stay small. Stay quiet. Survive until you can get out. 2 years after my mom died, my father remarried. Jolene was nice enough at first. She smiled a lot, made tuna casseroles, and tried really hard to fill the void. Karen immediately started calling her mom. It was strategic, I think. A way to cement her position as the good daughter, the loyal one who accepted the new regime. I couldn't do it. I couldn't call this stranger mom, when my real mother had only been gone 2 years. It wasn't about Jolene, it was about my own grief. But that quiet rebellion cost me. From that day forward, Jolene treated me like an outsider in my own home. She and Karen formed their own little alliance. And I wasn't invited. By the time I was 15, the lines were clearly drawn. Karen was the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. I was the black sheep, the problem child, the daughter who just couldn't get it together. And then there was the money. My mother had set up trust funds for both of us before she died. $45,000 each, accessible when we turned 18. It wasn't a fortune, but it was college tuition. It was a down payment on a house. It was a safety net from a mother who knew she wouldn't be there to catch us. Karen turned 18 in 2009 and got her share immediately. It was gone within 11 months. A flashy sports car she crashed, designer clothes she ruined, expensive gifts for her boyfriend, Trent. Trent was a smooth-talking guy 5 years older than her, with big ideas, investment opportunities, and absolutely no legitimate income. By the time I was kicked out 2 years later, Karen was completely broke. Her trust fund was a distant memory, and Trent was pressuring her for money for his next scheme. My $45,000 was just sitting there, accumulating interest, untouchable until 2014 when I turned 18. Unless something happened to me first. See, my mother's trust had a clause in it. A protection mechanism she probably thought would help us. If either daughter was declared legally incompetent or institutionalized for substance abuse or mental health issues before age 21, her share would be managed by a court-appointed family guardian until she recovered. Karen and Trent read the fine print. They figured out what that meant. If I got institutionalized for substance abuse, say because my father found pills and cash and evidence of drug dealing in my room, then someone would need to manage my trust fund on my behalf. Someone responsible. Someone trustworthy. Someone like a concerned older sister, who only wanted what was best for me. $45,000. That was the price tag Karen put on her own sister. The week before she destroyed my life, she put her plan into motion. Small cash withdrawals from my father's account using his ATM card. She knew his PIN because she handled the grocery shopping. Trent's empty prescription bottles collected and saved. A prepaid burner phone purchased at a convenience store, loaded with fake text messages to make me look like a dealer. On the morning of October 14th, while I was eating cereal and stressing about chemistry, Karen slipped into my room and planted everything. Cash in my dresser. Pills in my closet. The burner phone number written on a scrap of paper. Then she went to our father with tears in her eyes and told him his youngest daughter had a terrible secret. He believed every word. Why wouldn't he? She was the perfect daughter. I was the problem. By the time I walked through that front door, my fate was sealed. But Karen had made one mistake. One tiny, arrogant error in her perfect plan. She didn't account for Gloria Hensley. I don't remember much about collapsing at the mailbox. Just the ground hitting me and the cold finally winning. What I remember is waking up. The bright fluorescent lights. The smell of warm blankets. The beep of a heart monitor. And a woman sitting beside my bed. Gloria Hensley looked like a sweet grandmother, with silver hair in a bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. But her eyes were steel. When I opened my eyes, she handed me a cup of coffee. Hospital cafeteria coffee, she said. It tastes like motor oil, but it's warm. I laughed. It hurt my chest, but I laughed. Thank you, I rasped. There she is, Gloria said gently. Now, why don't you tell me why a 15-year-old was walking alone on Route 9 in a storm with no coat and no phone? So I told her. Everything. The accusations. The planted evidence. The years of Karen's manipulation. I told her things I hadn't told anyone because I didn't think anyone cared. Gloria just listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't doubt. When I finished, she looked at me and said, I believe you. And I'm going to help you prove it. Those words changed everything. While I was sleeping, the system had been working. The police had called my father. My father and Karen arrived at the hospital around 10:15 p.m. I was awake by then, sitting up, with Gloria beside me like a guard dog. Also in the room was Maria Santos, the active CPS caseworker, and Officer Daniels. My father walked in looking shaken but mostly annoyed. Karen was behind him, and for the first time, she looked nervous. They expected to find a scared, apologetic girl ready to beg to come home. Instead, they found a room full of professionals asking very pointed questions. Mr. Walls, Maria Santos said, holding a clipboard. Can you explain why you expelled a minor into severe weather conditions without contacting the authorities? She was dealing drugs, my father blustered. I found pills. I found cash. I had to protect my family. Did you verify the pills? Maria asked calmly. Did you test them? Did you check the bank records for the cash? Or did you just throw a child into a storm based on hearsay? He stammered. Karen tried to step in. We were just so worried. Quiet, Maria said, not even looking at her. I'm asking the parent. Then my grandmother arrived. Dorothy Reeves was 67 years old, 5'2" of pure determination. She lived 40 minutes away, but she made it in 25. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway like gunshots. She swept into the room, took one look at me hooked up to monitors, and then turned on my father. That is my granddaughter, she announced, her voice trembling with rage. What have you done to her, Raymond? My father tried to explain. Dorothy held up a hand. I've known you for 15 years, and you've never been the sharpest tool in the shed. But this is criminal stupidity. You threw a child into a storm. I don't care what you think she did. You don't do that. Dorothy demanded an emergency custody hearing right there. She called a judge she knew. By midnight, I had a new home. Emergency temporary guardianship was granted to Dorothy Reeves. My father was ordered to have no contact with me until a full investigation was completed. As we walked out of the hospital, my father tried to reach for me. Sweetheart, he started. Dorothy stepped between us. You don't get to touch her. You don't get to talk to her. You had your chance to be her father, and you threw it away. Literally. Now we're leaving. She took me home. She fed me soup. She put me in a clean bed with flannel sheets. For the first time in 5 years, I felt safe. But the real reckoning came 2 weeks later. Maria Santos, the CPS investigator, was thorough. She didn't just listen to stories, she checked facts. She started tracing the evidence my father had provided. It started with the cash. The $800 found in my drawer. My father said I stole it. Maria checked the bank records. That $800 came from a single ATM withdrawal on October 14th at 2:47 p.m. The bank provided surveillance footage. The person at the ATM wasn't me. It was Karen. Clear as day. Wearing the same jacket she wore that morning. Driving her white sedan with the dent in the bumper. And here is the kicker. At 2:47 p.m. on October 14th, I was sitting in 5th period chemistry class, taking a quiz on molecular bonds. My attendance record was marked present. My teacher remembered me asking a question. It was physically impossible for me to be at the bank. Karen hadn't checked my schedule. She was lazy. Then the pills. The bottles planted in my closet were traced back to a prescription for Trent Barlow, Karen's boyfriend. He had reported them stolen to the police on October 17th, 3 days after I was kicked out. If they were in my room on the 14th, why did he wait 3 days to report them missing? Because he needed to cover his tracks and get a refill. It was a sloppy setup. Finally, the burner phone. Maria tracked the purchase to a convenience store 2 blocks from Karen's gym. Security footage showed a young woman matching Karen's description buying the phone with cash 4 days prior. As Maria dug deeper, she found the real crime. Someone had been forging checks in my father's name for 2 years. Small amounts, adding up to nearly $18,000. The money went to accounts connected to Trent Barlow. Karen hadn't just framed me. She had been robbing our father blind, and she needed me gone before he noticed the missing money. Grandma Dorothy hired a lawyer, Leonard Barnes. He was an old family friend, a shark in a cheap suit. He filed for permanent guardianship and a civil suit against Karen for fraud. The court date was set for March 2012. But a month before, Trent Barlow got arrested in Nevada for running investment scams. Facing federal charges, he flipped. He made a deal. He told the prosecutors everything. He gave a written statement confirming that framing me was Karen's idea to get control of my trust fund. He had the text messages to prove it. The hearing in family court was supposed to be simple, but it turned into a criminal reckoning. The district attorney joined the case. Karen sat there with a public defender, looking small and pale. My father sat alone, looking aged. Jolene hadn't come. She had filed for divorce weeks ago after realizing what a mess she was in. The evidence was presented. The ATM footage. The school records. Trent's confession. When the prosecutor asked Karen about the ATM photo, she stammered, I was getting groceries. $800 cash for groceries? The prosecutor asked. And you didn't mention this withdrawal to your father when you accused your sister of stealing that exact amount later that day? Silence. Then they called my father to the stand. He had to admit, under oath, that he never investigated. He never asked me. He just believed Karen because it was easier. Judge Patricia Morrison looked at him with pure disgust. Mr. Walls, she said, trust is not an excuse for negligence. You expelled a child into a storm based on lies because you were too lazy to be a parent. That is abandonment. Karen's sentence was severe. Fraud, theft, filing false police reports, child endangerment. She took a plea deal. 2 years suspended sentence, 5 years probation, full restitution of the $18,000, and a permanent felony record. She was barred from working in finance or with vulnerable people. Her life as the golden child was over. My father lost guardianship permanently. He was ordered to pay for my therapy and college. Grandma Dorothy got full custody. As we left the courthouse, my father tried to speak to me again. Sherry, please. Dorothy blocked him. She's not yours anymore, Raymond. You made your choice. We walked away into the sunshine. 13 years later. October 2024. I'm sitting in my apartment in Boston. I'm a marketing director now. I have a fiancé, Colin, who is a pediatric nurse and the kindest man I've ever met. I built a life out of the wreckage. I decided to go to the nursing home. Not for him, but for me. To close the book. My father looked tiny in that hospital bed. The stroke had taken his strength. He cried when he saw me. He apologized over and over. He said losing me was the worst mistake of his life. I forgive you, I told him. But I don't forget. You chose comfort over your daughter. I built a life without you. I'm happy. You need to live with that. He nodded, weeping. As I left, the nurse told me something that struck me. Your sister came by last week, she said. He refused to see her. He told us to send her away. He said he couldn't look at her face without seeing what she did to you. Too little, too late. But it was something. I walked out into the crisp October air. It wasn't raining. The sun was shining. I called Colin. I'm coming home, I said. My father is alone with his regrets. Karen is working night shifts, saddled with a felony record. But me? I have my grandmother, my fiancé, and a future I earned. The storm didn't destroy me. It just cleared the path for the life I was meant to have. Thanks so much for watching. If you believe that truth always comes out in the end, hit that like button. See you in the next video.